How many times in your life have you heard the phrase, "You'll understand when you grow up"? Do you feel like you understand now? Do you feel like an adult? One of those adults who are supposed to solve complicated problems, who know what they're doing and where they're going. Did you become the person you once dreamed of being as a child? Did you find a job you can truly call your passion? Did your life turn out the way you imagined? Are you happy? And maybe the most important question of all, what does it even mean to be an adult? These are questions all of us keep coming back to. Questions we often punish ourselves for not being able to answer. And the tricky part is, those answers don't stay the same. Just when it feels like you finally figured something out, life takes a sharp turn, and that answer no longer fits. So, you start over. At 25, manga artist Inio Asano was asking himself those same questions, and that's when he created Solanin, a story drawn directly from his own life. His girlfriend at the time, his college friends, his circumstances, his anxieties, and the very questions that haunted him. It became his first major commercial success. 11 years later, when he had, in a sense, become an adult, Asano returned to Solanin to write its final chapter. So what answers did he find? Did he figure out what it means to be an adult? And is Solanin still worth reading today? Solanin is one of the early works by the cult manga artist Inio Asano, best known for Dead Dead Demons, Dead Destruction, and Goodnight Punpun. The manga was first published in 2005, and in 2010 it was adapted into a feature film, which I'll also be referencing in this essay, since it stays remarkably faithful to the original. Asano is known for stories that are dark, pessimistic, and uncomfortably realistic. He tends to explore difficult themes: depression, self-destruction, narcissism, the quiet ways people hurt themselves and each other. But what makes his work stand out is the absence of clear villains or heroes. His worlds aren't divided into good and evil. Instead, his stories are entirely about ordinary people. They go to work, fall in and out of love, dream, argue, have sex, hurt others, and sometimes destroy themselves. And even when something fantastical enters the picture, like the alien invasion in Dead Dead Demons DDD Destruction, it's never really the point. It's just a background, a setting, a metaphor. The real story is always about being a human.
戦争だ。
あ、うん。これ戦争ゲーム。
じゃなくて、日本で戦争が始まるかも。
なんで?
But Solanin doesn't even lean on metaphor or the fantastical. It's a simple story, some would even call it mundane, about a young couple, Meiko Inoue and Naruo Taneda. They're in their early 20s, living together in a small rented apartment in Tokyo, with no clear idea of what they want from life. Adulthood pushes Naruo to give up his band and take on design gigs just to get by. Meiko has been working an office job for years, but she's exhausted by it, bored, stuck, and ready to quit. Neither of them really feels like an adult. Or rather, they don't want to become one. Because, as Meiko puts it, adults are people who respond to everything with a quiet, "It is what it is." Wars happen. Disasters happen. But as long as I'm fine, it is what it is. My nose hair is too long. Whatever. I'm not hungry, but everyone's going out to eat. Fine. I'm not happy. Well, whatever. Both Meiko and Naruo dream of breaking out of that routine, of becoming free, of finally living out those childhood fantasies, becoming the people they once imagined they'd be. They want to win at life. And in a way, they get their wish. Early in the story, Meiko quits her job. Then she convinces Naruo to stop drifting between part-time work and take music seriously. In a different story, this would be the beginning of a rise to success. But not in a story by Inio Asano. Because in his world, as in real life, you have to be careful what you wish for. The outcome might be nothing, like what you imagined. At first glance, Meiko and Naruo seem to be in the same place. Young, lost, eventually unemployed, unsure what it even means to be an adult. But in reality, they represent two very different kinds of being lost, almost opposite ends of it. Meiko resents her ordinary life. She hates her job, her co-workers, the dull, repetitive routine. She lashes out at people, gets irritated by strangers, and quietly rebels at work, scanning dumb jokes instead of actual documents just to spite her boss. And yet, for all that frustration, she has no idea what she wants instead. There's no big dream, no clear talent, no obvious obstacles standing in her way. Nothing to overcome, nothing to chase. She's just drifting, moving with the current, without really affecting the world around her at all. In that sense, she mirrors another character in the manga, Billy. He plays in Naruo's band and has inherited his family's small pharmacy. Like Meiko, he doesn't particularly enjoy what he does. But unlike her, he isn't willing to change anything either. In one scene, he compares himself to the pharmacy's mascot, a small frog figurine standing by the entrance day and night, under the blazing sun and pouring rain. It doesn't actually contribute anything to the business, and if it disappeared, no one would even notice. At one point, Meiko asks him, "Are you happy?" But Billy just brushes the question aside. He avoids thinking about the meaning of his life altogether. Meiko, on the other hand, decides to take the risk. She quits her job, hoping that by shedding this life she hates, she'll finally figure out how to fill the empty space with something meaningful, something truly important, something that feels adult. But almost immediately after she quits, her days begin to fill up with a different kind of routine. Aimless walks, doing laundry, cooking, playing video games. On paper, this is the freedom she wanted. And yet, after just a week, Meiko starts to realize something uncomfortable. Freedom without a goal feels an awful lot like boredom. Like Meiko, Naruo also feels that his ordinary life is empty. In the mornings, he watches the news. Stocks rising and falling, wars breaking out, people building airplanes and inventing life-saving medicine. And meanwhile, he's scraping by on odd jobs, wandering through places like the zoo, inevitably asking himself, what am I even doing in this world? Time keeps moving forward, and the sense of possibility only seems to shrink. He dreams of being lost in a dense, tangled forest with no way out, while the weight on his back grows heavier with each passing year. But unlike Meiko, Naruo does have something to hold on to. He has a dream. He wants to become a musician. That's why he learned to play guitar. Why, back in college, he put together a band. Even his current work as a designer grew out of that same impulse, the desire to do something creative with his life, even if it wasn't music. Even if the world around him feels overwhelming and impossible to grasp, Naruo knows one thing for sure. Writing songs and playing them on stage makes him feel alive. More than that, he genuinely believes that music can change the world for the better. So, when, pushed by Meiko, he quits his job, his life really does shift. He decides to go against the current, despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, and commit to music seriously. He and Meiko only have a few months before they run out of money, so he throws himself into it completely, organizing rehearsals, writing, putting together an entire new album. And yet, he doesn't become a star. He doesn't change the world. After recording a demo and sending it out to studios, the band finally gets a callback, an invitation to a meeting. But what they're offered isn't a breakthrough, it's a compromise. They're told essentially to break up and become backing musicians for a rising model-turned-idol, because their rough amateur sound would be perfect as a product. Naruo is faced with a choice: give up the dream, but make a living through music. Turn down the offer and keep chasing that dream anyway, or see it for what it might be, a failure, and return to an ordinary life. He has a goal, but he has almost no freedom to pursue it. The life he shares with Meiko weighs on him. He feels responsible for providing for both of them. His own expectations press down just as hard. He can't bring himself to settle for being a background musician just to make money. There's the creeping doubt about his own talent, the promises he's made to himself and to Meiko that he would make this work, no matter what. And above all, there's time, quietly slipping away. Eventually, all of that weight becomes too much, and Naruo breaks. A goal without freedom starts to look a lot like that dark, tangled forest from his dreams. One with no way out. In the works of Inio Asano, ordinary people do ordinary things. They go to work, fall in and out of love, dream, argue, lose themselves, find themselves again. They're born, and they die. And just like in real life, in Solanin, death only brings one story to an end. The rest keep going, no matter what. Meiko finds a new job. She learns to play the guitar. She brings the band back together for one final show, to perform the songs Naruo wrote but never got to play on stage. At first it feels like everything has been building toward this. Like this is the point where Meiko steps into his place, picks up his dream, and carries it through to the end. Even the same agent, the one who once suggested they become backing musicians for a model, happens to be in the audience. This should be the moment he realizes what he missed. But that's not what happens. They do play the show. They perform the final song. And then, they go back to their ordinary lives. It turns out that death doesn't really change anything on a grand scale. It becomes just another part of the everyday. The days keep moving. Time keeps slipping through your fingers. It turns out that even if you have freedom, a goal, and people by your side, it still doesn't guarantee some kind of breakthrough. One song, one concert, 1 month of freedom. It's just a small drop in something much larger, in the long, often directionless stretch of adult life. A life where dreams don't always come true. Where the story doesn't neatly resolve into a satisfying victory. Where love doesn't always overcome everything. A life that simply keeps moving forward, no matter what. And that's where the original 2005 manga ends. And yet, 11 years later, Inio Asano returns to Solanin and writes one more chapter, an epilogue. 10 years have passed. The characters have grown older. Meiko is now married, expecting a child. The others have settled into their lives, found some kind of footing. Some of them still get together on weekends, rehearsing, playing small shows after work. But they're no longer chasing the idea of making it big. That dream has quietly faded into something else. At first, it feels like the epilogue only reinforces the original ending. They didn't become the stars they once dreamed of being. Their lives are still complicated, still ordinary. If you start listing their problems, it's hard to stop. So, what does that mean? Have they become those adults Meiko once despised? The ones who shrug and say, it is what it is? Does this mean they lost? Is this what growing up really looks like? Well, despite the usual pessimism that runs through Asano's work, Solanin offers something unexpectedly different. In the epilogue, Asano does show that all of the characters return to ordinary life, but where, in their youth, they tried to fight against it. Growing older teaches them something else, how to find their own kind of happiness within it. He shows that adults, too, get lost. They don't always know how to solve difficult problems or what to do with their lives. They ask the same questions. What do I actually want? Why am I here? Am I happy? For Inio Asano, the real difference between children or teenagers and adults isn't what they feel. It's what they do. Adults are the ones who keep going. Even when they don't have the answers. Even when they don't know which path to choose. Even when everything feels uncertain or overwhelming. They take responsibility for their lives and move forward anyway. That doesn't mean they've become the kind of people who shrug and say it is what it is. It's more that they understand something deeper. Everything in life eventually passes. Good days give way to difficult ones. Rainy evenings turn into clear mornings. People go to work, fall in and out of love, dream, argue, hurt each other, and eventually die. All you can really do is keep trying. Don't give up. Trust that somehow things will fall into place. As Billy says at the very end, answering the question Meiko once asked him at the beginning, I think it's enough just to exist. And maybe that's what it really means to be an adult.